It gives me great pleasure to again be here back on stage with two people who have a lot of interesting insights to share. If you look at Yotta and what Sunil is doing there, it's about building infrastructure in India by an Indian company for AI development and supporting the ecosystem here. So we have the infrastructure side of it represented from Sunil and Yotta. And Aakrit built one of the most scaled AI applications with haptic, 100 million plus devices where it was deployed. And now he's actually advisor to the India AI mission. So he brings in the use cases and applications perspective, and now also a completely different view from the ring side, being as part of the government's efforts to drive AI policy and AI infrastructure and AI innovation in India. So these differing perspectives that we can bring onto this table, I'm sure will bring out a lot of interesting points that all of us will benefit from. So with that, I will just open my questions. Maybe we can start first with Sunil. So if you look at the AI moment for India, Sunil, so we talk about AI could be the technology that could help India leapfrog in the deep tech space, and we talk about India's AI advantage. So what are the unique strengths do you see for India to play an innovator's role in the AI development?
Good morning. I think we can see it from two sides, the supply side and the demand side. If I talk from demand side, India potentially is the largest future market for AI. And I think the reasons we all know are simple. We have the largest population, which is very digitally enabled population, everybody carrying a smartphone. AI and product, which is an application or a model, at the end of the day becomes a, some productivity application which we all will be using, which our natives in our town Bs and town Cs and villages also will be using. So, and we have seen that if you give a good technology in the hands of Indians at a right price point, we will just grab it and start consuming it day in, day out. So simply our digitally enabled population, they see value in this and they will adopt it, and that itself will make us the largest market in the world. And this is, I'm talking about only the B2C or G2C. Of course, we will have so much of B2B use cases and G2G use cases as well. So that is the, I would say, demand side. From a supply side, India has got two facets. One is that India itself can, can be a supplier for tackling, or I would say taking the demand of the Indian market itself. Second is, if we are the largest supplier of software and services for the last 3 decades, India the country, I mean, there's no reason why we cannot also become the same, I would say, garage of the world for AI services also. And again, I keep on saying, ultimately AI also is a combination of technology and mathematics, and Indians are great in technology and mathematics. So essentially from a skill set point of view, which I think the latest numbers say that we have more than 6.6 lakh skilled AI engineers, which possibly is projected to go to around 12 lakh AI trained engineers in the next 2 or 3 years. There's no dearth of skill sets. There's no dearth of I think the startup ecosystem, we saw the nasscom report getting published, how the startup ecosystem has started growing in the last 1 year, how it has grown. So whether we see skill sets, whether we see the startup ecosystem, whether I would say in terms of the computational power, yes, till just 1 year back, we were talking about no computational power available, but now maybe steps taken by Yotta, steps taken by some of the other providers, I can say that we already have enough of the top quality GPUs and computational power available in India. So even that perspective, I don't see there's any sort of us holding us back as India to develop the large AI market. So whether we see computations, whether we see skill sets, whether we see startup, whether we see availability of data sets, given our multiple, 300 plus languages, given our, I would say, long history, the data sets are there. How do we find those data sets and how actually make them put to use into AI models is something different. But I think all these are advantages. India just need to find them and put them into the right framework, and it can be great. Yeah, supply side, demand side, both.
Makes sense. So Aakrit, maybe I'll pose the same question to you, but maybe in a slightly different way, right? So when we talk about India's AI advantage, we have all heard about how use cases and application development on the back of this new AI technology is going to change the world. What are some of the use cases, applications where you have seen this already happening or signs of it happening? And if yes, maybe you can share some examples and some insights from that. If not, you can then share about what is it that we need to do as a country, as an ecosystem to get there.
Yeah, thanks so much and great to be here. Um, Look, I mean, um, I often say this that, I've been working in AI for 12 years now. And the inflection point in the AI as an industry was not GPT-3 or NVIDIA H100 coming out. The inflection point was when ChatGPT launched. So the inflection point was an application that when hundreds and millions and billions of people experienced it themselves, they truly saw the power of AI. And then, rest is history, right? What's been happening over the last 2 years. So I keep thinking about what's going to be the ChatGPT moment for India, where we are going to have one or maybe multiple killer applications where this question that you asked will become irrelevant, right? This question that what are the use cases and applications will not hold anymore. It's like asking what is the use cases for building a mobile app, right? Um, However, the journey to that will take some time. As of this moment, yes, there are some very interesting applications, in healthcare, education, agriculture particularly. That are slightly early. They may not be ones that we're familiar with, but they're starting to make steady progress. Outside of that, is there a mass scale end user AI application in India that scale? No. Um, and I believe our country always goes through, most countries when it comes to technology evolution, I think we have this linear curve. I think India has always followed step function. From 2012 and 13, we all started building consumer products. We had to wait till 16 for, the telecom wave to come out to subsidize, to reduce the cost of data. And that led to the inflection. Same with payment, right? Took 8 or 9 years to convince people to put OTPs on their apps, and then suddenly you had UPI moment. So I think similarly, AI is going through the same moment. Today, a lot of the foundational pillars are being placed. Infrastructure is one, the kind of amazing work that folks like Yotta is doing. If you think about the layer above, which is data and models, now we have at least 3 or 4 companies that are doing foundational model work. Once these things are in place, then you're going to have the app developers come next and think about some of the killer apps that can be built.
Sounds great. So we'll shift our discussion to infrastructure and scalability. Of course, we all know that like data, if data is the oil for this AI wave, the engine that is powering the whole thing is infrastructure, right? And lots of it. So so from Tota's perspective, right? How do you see this AI infrastructure and scalability question? Are we able to get the latest and greatest in terms of the tech stacks and infrastructure to India quick enough? And how do you see this evolving? And maybe I'll have a follow-up question on this as well.
So, yeah, so I mean, it was, I would say, unfortunate that for the opportunity which India as a country presents, we, and despite having all the other, I would say, inputs for making it a big thing in India, whether skill sets and startups, as I said, or data sets and everything, what India was not having was computation power, right? Which is essentially the GPUs, and in today's world, possibly we can say NVIDIA GPUs. And that is something where, which cost somebody has to take a step, maybe take a risk, take a futuristic call and put in millions and millions of dollars of, money to invest into them. Because even if you make a small model, it will maybe 1 or 2 boxes will not do. You'll still have to have hundreds of boxes. And if you are attempting in India, which possibly I'm sure we will have to do in India, is making large language models for some of the use cases. You need thousands of GPUs to work together, right? Connected to each other on a high-speed network with storage and all. So somebody had to put up this structure. And that is where I think a typical entrepreneurial risk-taking, takes precedence. That is where the government's initiatives of supporting the industry by way of some sort of a private-public model, either by way of subsidization and incentives, the way they have done for semiconductor mission, or by way of creating demand. That's what they are doing through India mission, where government is saying, okay, private sector, you come invest, but we'll actually make sure that the market purchases what you will produce, and we will subsidize the end startups and the end industry and the, let's say, end research bodies to consume what you'll be offering the market. So government has done a great job here, acting as a demand generator. And industry, now I would say with India AI mission coming in, we took the steps even before India AI mission. We thought the market is so big, we will be able to serve both India as well as the global demand, because there's a scarcity across the world. So not only we serve Indian market, but we can also serve the spillover demand of the world of US and Middle East and Europe also from India itself. So we took the steps. Enough of GPUs are available. With India AI mission coming in, government producing, or I would say creating demand and giving subsidies to the end customers to take it, I would say there are, and I can see the interest, the India AI mission RFP is out, 12th November, we all will be bidding for that. And my feeling is, Aakrit I think will have much more visibility on that, but I think there is 6 or 7 large players, large conglomerates, who will be willing to put in much more money to what I would say the infrastructure in abundance. I think we all know how telecom changed from a 16 rupees per minute. Suddenly we got into a situation where voice has become free and we only pay something for data. Even data also is like very, very cheap in India compared to the rest of the world, and that's where the revolution came, the 5G revolution came. I think the same thing will happen in AI. Today we are talking about this computation problem. Within possibly less than 1 year, this will become just a hygiene. Nobody will even talk about it as a great problem, because we all must have invested so much in computation in India, and the economies of scale will become, and I would say the use case, the market size will be so big that our returns will be ensured. So we will no more be talking about the infrastructure per se. Of course, this GPUs, I would say investments also need the underlying data center investment. And while India as a country has, I would say, grown big time, almost 6 times we have created data center capacity in the last 10 years. Today we are about 1200 megawatt of data center capacity. We are expecting it to become almost 3000 megawatt, which is like you are becoming third largest data center market in the whole of APAC. So that way a whole lot of work has been done in data centers, but AI workloads is extremely high density workload. A typical data center rack which consumes 6 kilowatt of power, you're talking about like 100 kilowatt of power per rack. So the type of data centers which AI will be needing, which we, in different jargon we call AI factories, will be very, very different. And I think the coming days and times, much more investment into data centers will be needed in India, which is specifically for AI workload, like a liquid-cooled data centers. And of course, as we move forward, I'll speak about some other than concerns coming around that in terms of if we become power guzzlers, how do we actually bring in green energy as well?
Exactly, that was going to be my follow-up question as well, Sunil. In terms of, we have all heard about how much of power is required to train these really large models and even for inferencing. India as a country, while we have made some progress on transitioning to, for example, clean energy, for example, 42% of India's energy production today is actually coming from clean energy sources. But that's still going to place a lot of strain on our energy infrastructure. Our grid, for example, is not the most robust. It doesn't have enough storage, for example, to even out workloads throughout the day and night and so on. So what do you see there in terms of things that the ecosystem needs to think about, maybe government needs to invest in, etc., to be able to fuel some of this innovation that is going to critically depend on availability of robust power to power all this infrastructure?
So 2 things. First is in terms of the data points. Yes, the global data points is, I think one of the speakers, I think you only mentioned in your opening speech that globally, data centers were using almost 3% of the energy, the total global energy, and which possibly is threatening to increase to double digits if the full force of AI comes in. If you put in thousands and thousands and thousands of GPUs, which is the race now, this is threatening to become almost like double-digit percentage of the total global energy, which will be getting into thousands of some buildings called data centers, right? So it is a big global problem, right? A country like Singapore had to put a moratorium on data centers in 2017 because 7% of the power of Singapore was consumed by a couple of hundreds of buildings which were data centers. So it was a problem. But if we see from an Indian context, good that we started on this wave of building data centers and clouds and in AI later, because we are taking care of the aspects like energy, green energy, right when we are also growing up and building more and more capacity. So today, the data centers are consuming just about 1500 to 1800 megawatt of power, which is less than, I would say, 0.2 or 0.3% of the total power which India is producing, right? So that way, I would say India is still consuming much lesser as a percentage compared to what the world numbers is. So there is nothing like a red flag, which possibly developed countries need to worry about, not India. India still need to focus on development, which means putting more GPUs, putting more cloud, putting more data centers, because we have to take care of our growth and the AI use cases as well. But while we do that, yes, we need to be aware of and make sure on two things. One is we consume less and less power in data centers, and second, we consume more and more green power. So there is a what type of power you consume, and second is how much power you consume. In terms of the how much power you consume, thankfully there are global technologies which we are, when we are building our data centers now, we are using it right from day one, called like liquid cooling. Earlier, water in data center was a strict no-no. You cannot think of taking water into a data center. Today we are talking about water or a special type of liquid going right up to the chip, right? And that is the type of data centers we are making. In any case, when you are sort of trying to serve 128 kilowatt per rack, the only option is to dip the chip into the water itself so that the heat is extracted right then and there. So that is something which will take care, I would say, in a major way, that we don't really waste energy and we only put that much energy only in data centers as is required. So we save power. Second part is the type of energy. I would say India is fortunate. I would say India has done great compared to the rest of the world. Is 45% of the energy which India is generating today is actually green energy, which you just mentioned, right? And this number, the Indian government focus is to actually have a much more accelerated pace of green power production compared to a conventional power production. So that way, I would say, and by the way, India is power sufficient. Unlike many of the conventional thought that India has got less power, India actually is power self-sufficient, right? So there is no lack of power to power our data centers. There is a much more power, which is green power, which is getting generated. And the regulatory framework, both at the central level and the state level, is that any data center operator which is consuming more than 1 megawatt of power on a steady state basis can literally go across, have something called open access arrangement with a solar power producer, with a wind power producer, with a hydro power producer, and just have a long-term arrangement for green power. So today, for example, my own data center in Mumbai, it's a huge campus. It is running on 100% green power. And many of the data center operators are doing that. So I would say, India, yes, we are taking care of our development. We'll put more GPUs, more data centers. But as an industry, we are taking care of the green issues and consuming less power issues right on day one.
Makes sense. So maybe one last question, Aakrit, to you before we open it up for maybe one or two questions from the audience. Maybe this and where your India I had to talk about, right? So Sunil talked about how infrastructure will not be a problem going forward. Maybe in 6 months, 1 year, even any supply constraints will no longer be the bottleneck. So in that scenario, from a talent and skills perspective, right? What do you see as the next set of things that the professionals here should be focusing on? How should they think about upskilling and innovating on top of all this infrastructure and all of the new Gen AI tech that is coming out?
Yeah, I mean, goes back to the, same point that I mentioned. See, AI and everything that we're setting up at an infrastructure level is very similar to, let's say, the internet. And then there is a browser, right? So everybody over here, any professional, you're in business, you're in tech, you run a small business, doesn't matter. You need to be thinking about what are the best problems that can be solved for your customers. Your customers could be other businesses, consumers, right? And think about how this technology can solve that in a much faster, better manner. I actually think learning and implementing AI applications is going to be the easiest wave of application learning we've ever had. I think it was incredibly difficult in the first wave to build websites. I think when it came to mobile apps, it was very, very hard to get past the Google and Apple paywalls. I think building an AI app and a simple sort of image generator is maybe 36 hours of work for a half-decent engineer. And even not, I mean, I know a lot of colleagues, friends, peers, founders who are traditionally business-focused founders who are actively thinking about how to build some of these things because it's so easy to generate code now. So the, courses and all of upskilling aside, the number one advice I have is just get started. Just get started building something. Could be part of your existing business, existing job. Could be something that you want to automate for yourself, your own personal use. And that's how you will pick up what this thing is.
Absolutely. I think that's very well put. One more thing I'll add on top of what Aakrit said is one is about coding and creating new applications yourself. But even otherwise, any field today that you're in, right? Let's say you're a marketer. There are creative ways in which you can use GenAI tooling. You may not be developing the tooling yourself, but how do you leverage existing tooling, be aware of it, to do your job 10x better, for example, right? So there are now helper tools that are coming online for even business development folks to track their leads better, convert their leads better, which uses GenAI tech. Educators can use it. People in entertainment can use it to convert their storyboards to actual production value outcomes with much faster cycles. So I think whichever field or domain you are in, of course, it's so easy, as Aakrit said, for you to develop your own applications and use cases and learn these things very fast. But even if you're not developing new applications, I think it's imperative that everybody today understands how to leverage tools and applications that others are developing to really upskill themselves and be the best and at the cutting edge of your own field as well. So I think our time is actually up, but I'll still open it up.
I just want to add to that. One of the biggest misconceptions around people who think about building simple AI apps is, oh, that must already exist. When in fact that's not true. And I'll give you a great example. I'm hosting a small event tomorrow in Mumbai for a bunch of, investors and founders. And I wanted to send an WhatsApp invite out for that event. The WhatsApp invite was supposed to have like a nice image, and on that it should say, here's what we're doing, write some content, time, date, location, and put my brand, right? Like context of who I am and so on. Do you know there's no generative AI tool that does this? There are generative AI tools that will simply create an image, and there's generative AI tools that will simply create the text. And there's generative AI tools that will take your brand and create an invite, but none of them will marry all three. This literally happened yesterday morning. So I called up a technical founder friend of mine, and I said, hey, look, I'm sure there must be something that exists. Can you send me something? He's like, wait, there's nothing. And then last night he sat and he's building it. And hopefully he'll do something about it. So, it's actually this misconception that there must something exist, like you said in your job, right? Or anybody's job, whether you're a PM, marketer, salesperson, think about what AI can do, quickly Google it up, and you may find it doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I think there would be opportunities and white spaces for any of your areas for you to innovate, invent new tools as well that will help you as well as a lot of others in your own field. But of course, I'm sure there are some existing tools as well that you should learn also as part of the upskilling process. So yeah, it's a combination of both. I'm sure that will help you really up your game in whichever field you're in. So with that, our time is up, but maybe we can take one or two quick questions from the audience for any of our panelists. Yeah, please go ahead. Can somebody please pass a mic to the gentleman in the back who's standing?
Hi. This is Meet from 100x VC. This question is to Aakrit. You also put on an investor hat. And what are some AI leveraged businesses which excite you currently?
Right now, the largest opportunity, which is here and now, there are two where there's already demand and business is growing. One is broadly voice AI to support business process. So contact center, PPO. If you've not heard of this company, check out this company called Sierra in the US. They started about a year back. Of course, the team is very pedigreed. but they just raised around building contact center for voice at 4 billion in about a year. And there's many like that. But just broadly, right, look at any enterprise and think about all their processes and where can voice apply. Contact center and BPO is one of them, but just broadly that. And second is AI-led services. So take any industry where there is a manual services work, could be marketing agency, could be design agency, could be development agency, software development agencies. Just look at how they can, if you put AI on top, how they can become significantly efficient at what they do, outcomes are better, and the business model is completely disruptive. Those are the two areas that I hear and now. Immediate startup opportunities. Of course, things like compute and LLM are exciting, but you know, my few 100K is not going to help them.
I think, Sunil, you wanted to share something before
Yeah,
we...
so because I'm using the nasscom platform, so you know, they wanted me to make an announcement. About 1 month back, along with nasscom and Telangana AI Mission, we announced a startup credit program called Shambho. This is available on our website. You can visit that. This is through this program, we are extending credits worth almost like $200,000 for each startup, which can take care of almost your 12 to 15 month of development journey. Practically, you can go from inception stage up to the production stage. So in case you want to benefit from this credit program, the top-end GPUs are available with us. A whole lot of very exciting services are available which will help you in building your models. In case you are interested in that, you can go to our website. The program is called Shambho, and you can possibly apply for the credits. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of the startups here would be interested in applying for it. So great to hear that. Okay, with that, we will close. And again, I would like to thank my panelists for their insights. I'm sure the audience found it very useful. Thank you.